Hi, Democrats. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Live. You know, I I wish that every time I came on here, I didn't have to come on and talk about heavy stuff. I wish I could come on and be all mad at the Republican legislators down at the Capitol because they're doing some crazy things. I wish I could focus on that. I wish I could focus on, how angry I am that Governor Stitt, is absolutely not caring about laws that matter to Oklahoma. But today I have to come on and talk about the mass shooting, another mass shooting in Boulder, Colorado. Um, I saw a meme. I was thinking this and I was sad. And then I saw a meme that articulated exactly what I was thinking. We are the only country that, going back to normal means that we're going back to mass shooting after mass shooting. And I wasn't sure that I could talk about it, without getting too emotional. And so I asked somebody to join us today who is very active in the common sense gun law arena, is a member of Moms Demand Action. And so I'm asking the president of Young Democrats of America to join us because he's also a member of Moms Demand Action for gun sense safety, for gun sense laws, Joshua Harris Hill. Thanks, Josh, for agreeing to join me.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I, like you, wish it was under different circumstances, but the unfortunate reality is that until we actually start seeing some real change, this is going to continue to be a recurring theme in our country.
So in Oklahoma, I can't even think about Colorado right now because it's so sad and we don't know enough of the facts about Colorado. But Oklahoma common sense gun laws, do those two, is that a coherent sentence? Oklahoma common sense gun laws?
Absolutely not. The unfortunate reality is that they are devoid of common sense. Um, the reality is we saw this permitless carry bill pass, and we knew then that the unfortunate reality is that this would be the tip of the iceberg. That they would continue to try to push legislation that would unfortunately cost lives. And we've seen so many different scenarios in which you get rid of these common sense barriers, and those end up being directly involved in deaths. Georgia, unfortunately, was a perfect example. The same day that he decided to do these shootings, he got a gun. The fact that he was in what we can only consider a mental health crisis at the time, in a position to think about taking the lives of all of these people, and he was able to get a gun that same day with no barriers whatsoever, is the reason that so many of those lives were taken. And this happened in multiple locations. So you can't pretend like this is something that would not have been an issue if a gun wasn't involved. He traveled and he killed multiple people in multiple locations. And we're seeing Colorado. The NRA in Colorado just released a statement talking about how they were so happy that the AR-15 and the magazine capacity laws failed, and this man used an AR-15 and an extended capacity magazine to take those lives. The reality is simple. These restrictions, these regulations, when properly put in place, prevent unnecessary deaths. And here's the thing. Nobody wants to ban all your guns. Nobody believes that these gun laws are going to stop all of the murders. But if we can save one life, that is extremely important. And a lot of people just won't get it until it's a life that's close to them.
That's sad and heartbreaking. Now, when you say the NRA, now is that the same NRA that Oklahoma is trying to get to come here?
The unfortunate reality is that it is. And I think that people don't even understand the history of the NRA, how it has transitioned, and how much of a detriment it is to our society currently. Guns are not bad inherently. I'm a gun owner, right? But guns in the wrong hands are horrendous, and they continue to see the loss of life of people that we care about. A lot of people know gun violence affected my family. A mass shooting in Dallas and DeSoto is the reason that my sister is no longer here. There are 4 other women who are no longer here. My 2 little brothers know what it feels like to have a bullet enter their body. That's the reality of us not having these regulations. That's the real truth. That the reason I have an alarm system in my house now is because my little brother lives with me. And his PTSD from that event still exists today. My other little brother walks on crutches because it hit his spinal cord and left him with permanent damage. That's the reality on the other end of gun violence. That's the reality of us not passing common sense gun laws. That's the reality of us fighting against regulations. It is unconscionable that we would continue to still make these mistakes. We saw Sandy Hook, we saw Parkland, we saw Columbine. What is it going to take? And this is a question that I ask a lot of conservatives, a lot of gun rights enthusiasts. How many lives are worth you having to deal with added regulations? Because it's only an extra couple of days, right? It's only a background check. If you're a upstanding citizen, you're not going to be stopped from having a gun, but somebody might, and that could save lives. If the Las Vegas shooter taught us nothing, this man went in there with mass amounts of ammo from a distance and killed people who were just trying to enjoy a concert.
So
how many more lives is it going to take before we can actually see some changes?
see, that's the question that I ask all the time. You have to plan to go hunting. You have to get a hunting license. You have to get permission to go hunt wherever it is that you're going. What would it hurt if you also had to wait a couple of days to get a gun? Right?
Right, and that's the reality. Is that a couple of days is usually not a big deal. And there are people who definitely want to get guns immediately because they fear for their safety, and I understand that, and my heart goes out to them because I do want safety to be a priority of folks who feel like they're in danger. But the reality is that danger that you feel like in that makes you want to rush the process, that rush process can lead to other people dying. It might lead to you having a gun sooner, but it can also lead to death. And we have to weigh what's important to us. That time period is just enough to save at least one life, then it's worth it. It's the same scenario when you think about the airport after 9/11. Now you have to take your shoes off, go through this scanner. That's an inconvenience, but it didn't stop us from flying. All of the regulations about vehicles, because people oftentimes compare car deaths to gun deaths. All the regulations around vehicles haven't stopped people from driving. It's clear that these regulations aren't going to stop people from owning guns. What they may stop, though, is at least one shooting, and that would be worth it.
Right, because if the I want to call him by the right term, the shooter in Georgia would have had to take a beat and wait a couple of days, maybe he would have gone to his pastor or sought help because he was struggling with a sexual addiction. Maybe it could have caused that one. I want to ask you about Oklahoma becoming a sanctuary state for the Second Amendment.
We love to do things that sound good, right? And the unfortunate reality is that they market these things like they're not going to be dangerous. The reality, though, is we're giving people the freedom to come here and carry guns when they might have been banned from carrying guns for very good reasons in other states. We are endangering our own people, and there's no way around that. There's no, the fact that criminals could come here and not have to be held to the requirements that we agree in. People agree felons shouldn't have guns. People agree people who have domestic violence history shouldn't have guns. Why would we open our state to invite them to come here? To let them know, hey, all of those regulations you had to deal with in other states, we don't care about those. Come murder our people freely. That is what we're giving them permission to do by trying to pass this legislation.
Right. We don't want Oklahomans with domestic violence to have a gun. We don't want Oklahomans with violent felonies to have guns. But from Kansas, come on, hang out. We're a sanctuary state. You say it looks good. I say it's performative. I think that there are a lot of the bills that were proposed, not just gun laws, but a lot of the bills that were proposed in this session were performative. They were sending some kind of crazy town message, and we need to focus on taking care of Oklahoma. We do not need folks who have no respect for a weapon. If they don't have a respect for a weapon in Arkansas, we don't want them here.
We don't. And it definitely is performative, but it's still dangerous, right? And everybody listening to this, if you are not paying attention to the laws that they are passing because you don't think politics affects your everyday life, all it takes is one instance of this going wrong for it to affect your life. All it takes is one person coming into your city or your town or your church or your movie theater to affect your life. That's what we've seen time and time and time again. Guns in schools, guns on campuses, permitless carry. One of the first things that happened after we made this a permitless carry state is a man went into a restroom, left his gun on the toilet, the back of the toilet, and a 4-year-old found it. That's a 4-year-old who could not be here right now because somebody was negligent. I say this all the time, and I've never had anybody disagree with me. We all can think of at least one person we know who shouldn't have a gun. They just aren't responsible enough.
Just one?
Look, at least one. I could probably change that to at least 10 and still not have anybody disagree with me. That's the reality. We took away the training. That was the only barrier we had in Oklahoma, was a little bit of training, and we took that away. Now we want to welcome people from other states who are criminals. That's what sanctuary means. Criminals from other states can come here and not have to deal with the consequences of their actions. This is horrible legislation, and Oklahoma should be ashamed of itself for even thinking about it.
Well, I agree, and I knew that you could talk about it much better than I could. I am distressed by, the fact that I know we have so many, what is the word, not common sense gun laws being proposed in this session. And then when I wake up, it feels like every day with another, mass shooting, and I have to think about this is what is going on, and this is getting ready to come to bear in Oklahoma. We are setting ourselves up. We are setting ourselves up for an Atlanta shooting. We are setting ourselves up for a Boulder shooting. And I have been focused this year on advocacy. I want for folks who are watching me, whether they're watching me live now on Tuesday at 4:28 or they see this later, I want you to reach out and call your local legislator, your House rep and your state Senate rep, and tell them, no, we do not want NRA here. They are not welcome. And that's resolution 1007. And no, we do not want Oklahoma to be a sanctuary state for people who cannot obey gun laws in their own state. So please call your legislators and tell them no on Senate Bill 631 and House Resolution 1007. Advocacy works. We have seen just in this cycle, when we make those phone calls, when we reach out and when we send those emails, it does make a difference. And we, the Democrats in the House and the Democrats in the Senate, need our voices. So when they are arguing on our behalf, they can cite how many people have reached out to them. They can cite their constituents. And that's what we have to do. We have to help those that we've elected to represent us be able to represent us. Josh,
Can I just add, and when you're calling and talking to them, tell them that you are making a pledge that if these bills pass and there's a veto referendum, you're going to sign it and get your friends and family to sign it. We saw how powerful veto referendums are last time, 37,000 signatures in 2 weeks. That was us running up against the window, not running out of support. So this time around, I assure you that we are running veto referendums, and we'll see if the Oklahoman people want to actually pass these laws. We'll see at the ballot box if they're willing to run campaigns to support this dangerous legislation. I know for a fact there are a number of pieces of legislation that if they are passed, I personally intend to run veto referendums. I know that we've talked, and I know that you're ready to support as well. I want every single one of you out there to say, if this passes, we will organize and we will get rid of it ourselves. And if you continue to pass legislation, we will get rid of you. We have to do better. We have to elect better people. And if better people aren't going to, if these people aren't going to make themselves better, then we're going to find somebody who is better. I think that's something that we have the ability to do. I think it's something that we need to be passionate about. I thank you so much for your leadership in terms of getting people registered and telling them about the absentee program. I know that you have more work to do, and I want you to know that I support you, and I hope everybody else does, because this is the only way we get change. It's not going to happen with us sitting at home. It's not going to happen with us posting on Facebook. It's going to happen by us organizing, advocating, and showing up at the ballot box.
Thank you. And that is absolutely true. Representation matters, and it's not just voting, although I need everybody to vote. It's not just voting. It's also advocating. It's also holding your elected officials accountable, and we have to stay engaged, because as Joshua said earlier, when you think you're not doing politics, politics is doing you. Politics affects every part of your life. And so you have to get involved and advocate. So I'm going to give you those bill numbers again. Senate Bill 631, call your reps and tell them no, we do not want this to be a sanctuary state. We do not want criminals from other states coming here with their guns. And House Resolution 1007, we don't want the NRA here. Beyond the guns, they're broke. They're not going to bring jobs here. They're not going to bring opportunities here. We don't need them. Please call and make sure that you let your representatives know whether they're a Democrat or a Republican, because they represent you regardless. I want to thank Joshua Harris Hill for joining me, and I will be back tomorrow at 4:15. You guys have a great day.